1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is! He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
I have some friends who are diehard believers in ghosts. They think ghosts are out there. They are afraid of ghosts. Most people who believe in ghosts are afraid of them that I've interacted with. And then there are people who believe in spirits and ghosts and stuff like that who are not afraid of them. If I think hard about it, I've never had anything that would make me believe immediately that there was a ghost in my house. But there are weird things I can't explain. Have you ever had a situation like that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think if someone knocked on your door and they said, I am an alien from another planet, you would believe them? Or do you need to see some kind of giant reptile-like looking thing?
If it's just someone who looks like a regular human and they have no other discernible traits that would make me think they're more likely to be not of this world, then I would request more proof than just them announcing that they are an alien.
Would you let them touch your temple?
Boy, I don't know. Like, it kind of depends on the vibe from the stranger. I don't think I would let anyone touch me that just came up to the door.
If someone reached for my temple, I would smack their hand away.
Yeah.
Be like, what are you doing? Stop. No, you don't get to touch me like that.
Yeah. Like they're going to Vulcan mind meld with you or something.
Mm-hmm. Or show me the future or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because that is how one of the only things that could prove to me right off the bat, if you look like a human and you sound like a human, but
that proves that you're an alien.
That's how you need to prove it, but I don't trust you enough to touch my temple. So
just because someone's an alien, though, doesn't mean that they'll be able to mind meld with you.
Well, I assume that that's the way it's going to go.
Because you've seen Star Trek and you've seen...
What?
Star Trek.
What's that?
Oh, don't bring that shit here. We're in my apartment right now. Don't you be saying you don't know what a Star Trek is in this apartment, sir.
I'm not familiar.
Oh.
Is it is it like an elliptical machine?
Oh, you do know what it is then. Okay, yeah, you have used it before.
Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
What the NASA astronauts use?
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, I think we should just boldly go where no man has gone before into this podcast.
Why not?
You're right. Now, let's say William Shatner shows up at your door.
Yeah.
And then he tries to touch your temple.
I would let him because I wouldn't feel like he's a stranger. I would feel like I know him.
Like he's a good friend.
Well, and it's always a good story too. Like if he kissed me full on the mouth, I wouldn't be happy that he did that. But then I'd be like, "You will not believe who kissed me yesterday."
And somebody like William Shatner.
I'd be like, "Yeah. Did he do that to you too?"
Yeah. Oh. There's a Rescue 911 convention in town, and so he's here making the rounds. When did we live in a much different world if instead of going to Star Trek conventions, there was Rescue 911 conventions instead? They're like, oh my God, you played Sally. I loved the show Rescue 911.
It used to freak me out as a kid because I didn't realize we were seeing reenactments.
Oh, you thought they just happened to have a camera there?
Well, I also thought Santa Claus was real. So, I mean, I thought a lot of things. Shit, I just ruined something for you, didn't I? Spoiler, I'm sorry, buddy.
Well, who says that are people who don't get gifts from Santa Claus.
That's true. It's just like ghosts, right? You have to believe in them to see them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to segue into this because...
That's true.
Yeah.
This actually is finally a good segue.
This is a good segue because in this podcast today, you will hear me talk about Santa Claus and specifically a website that I frequent.
Not at all what I was thinking, but okay.
Oh, what were you? What was your segue?
Our guest looks like Santa Claus because he's got a big beard. I call him the Vinyl Santa. He's my vinyl Santa.
His beard, though, is more
It was
like
like the first thing you commented on when he walked in
yeah,
the
right.
room.
And I told him he had a bitchin' beard.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have Santa Claus's beard. You have Santa Claus's beard.
I do not.
Right now. It just needs to be white. Yeah. Santa's beard. So our guest today has a big long beard, like kind of like a goat's beard.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
not
the
as full as
the sides are not full. The sides are kind of trimmed.
Sure.
You have a singular piece that's molded around your face, like if a bunch of bees landed on your face at one time. He's got something that looks like he's eating a long strip, like a big fruit by the foot made out of hair.
You're definitely thinking in terms of like the Coca-Cola Santa Claus, right? That very jolly
You
one.
Name one Santa Claus that
There
has a
are
big long beard.
There are plenty of Santas
Name
like
one.
Father Christmases
Name one.
from different countries.
Nope, not like that. Not who trim down the sides and have just one long like chunk.
I'm just saying I've seen ones with long beards that weren't
like Santa Claus.
that weren't like your stereotypical like Americanized Santa Claus, because we didn't
American.
invent Santa Claus.
No.
He came from other places, right?
Yeah.
He's an amalgamation of
Hair
things.
Noel.
Yeah, and I don't think that there were any style guidelines at the time as to what kind of beard Santa was. This isn't North Korea where you only have like 3 options for your hairstyle.
If you asked 100 people across the globe to draw a picture of Saint Nicholas,
Okay.
I guarantee you that out of 100, 0 out of 100 would draw the beard that our guest has.
This is not a scientific study.
This is a scientific study.
100 people
And
out of
here's the thing.
6.8 trillion?
You're making me out to be an asshole.
How is that a sample
because
size?
why are you making
How is that a sample size, JJ? 100 people out of over 6 trillion or billion or whatever it is?
Yeah.
Whatever the number
but they're
is.
randomly selected.
Oh.
You can choose whomever you'd like.
Oh, are they? Well, what if you just randomly happen to get a whole concentration from South Africa? You didn't think about that, did you? I
It's still not going to look like his beard.
I bet they draw Santa Claus very differently in that region of the world.
Yeah. It still wouldn't. The beard would still be the same.
So you're saying if it was Saint, you have to say Saint Nicholas.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would be the same beard.
At what point did we decide that he was Saint Nick, by the way?
I believe it was for a love of children.
Is that why?
And that's why Saint Nick is the patron saint of gifting to children.
I will re-embrace the spirit of Christmas in this country if we can start adding Krampus to the mix.
Oh, Krampus has got a huge comeback right
because
now.
he is not a part of sort of the Christmas story, the Christmas mythos as American children are raised with. There is no real bad guy in the American Christmas story, right? There's only a kid who is a bad kid, and therefore they don't get enough present, or they don't get good presents.
They get coal.
But there's no, except for like in movies that we've created new villains like Jack Frost and things like that. But
are you referencing Santa Claus 3, The Escape Clause?
Jack Frost, is he the villain in that?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Played by Martin Short.
That's right.
In everything else, I don't believe Jack Frost is the villain.
There is a horror movie that's supposed to be like a evil snowman that's a Jack Frost, but I don't think there's any Santa character in it. I think it's straight up just a monster movie.
Shannon Elizabeth from American Pie, who played Nadia, is in that movie.
Okay.
And
I was
pretty
obsessed with the Tim Allen Santa Claus, the very first one.
Oh, it's a great, phenomenal movie.
Because I wanted to be part of the Elf Squad who had like rocket boosters on their
Elf Liberation
Front. That's right, EELF.
Yeah.
And how Tinsel had like magical properties that you could destroy hinges on doors with.
Tinsel, never leave home without it. And they had jetpacks.
Yep. The jetpacks were the thing that I wanted. Mm-hmm. I loved the idea that you could live and work with Santa and have a jetpack. It's pretty sweet.
They just ruined it for the next 2 of them by, rather than making the workshop this magical kind of old school place, they took a different approach where it just became too cartoony.
But I do like the inclusion of other holidays. I like that idea that the mascots of a holiday all hang out and they know each other. Like in Nightmare Before Christmas. Mm-hmm. I'm a sucker for any kind of world that gets created where it's basically all of our holidays are personified somehow. But then I feel sad that some holidays are left out. Like April Fool's Day doesn't have a creature that pulls pranks on children.
When it should be Loki.
It should be Loki.
If you're going to do anything, it should be Loki.
Yes, it should be. You're totally right. In fact, let's make that a thing.
Yeah.
Let's become Norsemen.
Happy Tom Hiddleston Day.
Let's start worshiping between you and I the Norse gods. And on my birthday, which is April Fool's Day, we'll worship Loki.
I think that's a great idea.
I love it. I'm down.
I forget. I finally find a good way to segue into
Santa.
our guest introduction, and you ruin it.
It was my fault.
You ruined it.
It was my fault.
You ruined it. You are going to get a lump of coal from a roundly bearded Santa Claus.
You're the one who threw down the gauntlet and told me I was wrong.
You are wrong.
Why?
Because
I think that Dean Sime could be my personal vinyl Santa Claus.
No.
And when I say that, it sounds like I'm saying a Santa Claus who is vinyl.
Sounds like...
Or is covered in vinyl.
Yeah.
Like pleather, maybe. We're talking vinyl records.
Nope. He's your Santa daddy. And he's going to come and he's going to whip you up. He's going to whip you up some treats.
Time to tie you up to my sleigh.
Oh, better put a bow on that.
If you were a reindeer, one of the reindeer, which reindeer would you want to be?
Donner.
Why Donner?
Because Richard Donner, I thought he was named after the reindeer when I was a younger kid. And people would be talking about Lethal Weapon. It'd be like Richard Donner. I'd be like Santa?
Yeah.
And I also think that people call him Dick Donner. And so that would be my nickname for Donner. Be like, hey, Dick.
Got it. Double D.
What about you?
Blitzen.
Why?
Because the name, it sounds like someone who is tough. Like you wouldn't want, oh, that's Blitzen. You don't want to mess with Blitzen. Because a blitz is attached to like a violent, all-out attack.
Yeah, so, that's very sportsy of you.
So the thing is that I wouldn't, because I'm not a tough guy, not even remotely close. And I wouldn't be a tough guy reindeer, but I would hide under the name so I wouldn't have to have conflicts. People would just know to avoid me.
I also think Blitzen would be a pretty awesome band name.
Yeah?
Would you ever be Santa and the reindeer and then dress up like Santa Claus and then everyone else in the band dresses up like reindeer? But there wouldn't be... I mean, you need 11 other band members to be able to perform and not have somebody like... there's like 11 reindeers, so it's kind of bullshit.
I think I would like it if the band was themed where the band members were all the reindeer, but then Santa was sort of a mascot that they would tie up on stage, and the idea would be that the reindeer have taken over, and they're going to play some rockin' music.
He pulls them?
Yeah, he pulls them, and he comes on stage from time to time, like Captured by Robots always had someone in a robot costume on stage just walking around. I think that's what I'd like to see. Otherwise... Santa would be what, the keyboardist?
I was thinking drums.
Drums?
Although,
You have to take the jacket off.
Are there any fat drummers?
Oh, I'm sure there's plenty of fat drummers.
Are there? Because you're always moving around. Like, what if your gut gets in the way of you get hit in the snare?
A lot of jazz drummers are fat.
No, they. If you sampled 100 people across the globe to draw a picture of a jazz drummer, none of them would be obese.
Listen, I'm being mistaken for a jazz drummer all day long, every day, wherever I go, and it's because of my weight.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
It's because of your beard. It's because you got a very Santa-like beard, and people associate Santa with being the drummer of a band.
No, they're like, he's got a beard. Well, of course he would.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
If you were going to be a band, it would be called Tucker and His Kitties.
Yes, it would.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dean Sime.
JJ Meets World.
Hello, Dean Sime. Welcome to JJ Meets World.
Hello, JJ. How's it going?
First and foremost, since this is a podcast, I need to sometimes explain something that happens that you need a visual cue. You have got a killer beard, man. How long have you been working on this facial hair?
The facial hair has been kind of a permanent fixture on me since I was probably about 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
It's gone from like Tucker's length to almost just stubble to big and bushy to this is a little more pointed at the moment. So it changes now and again.
So you've had the full one where it's like your sideburns down, mountain man style beard.
That's usually the winter beard, January, February. I thinned this one up just about a month ago. So
is there a particular reason why you thin it out? Is it just for the weather? Like it's
part of it's weather, part of it's heat. It gets warmer. Also, I look thinner when my beard's thinned out. When it gets really bushy, I start feeling you put on the extra pounds from winter and everything's feeling extra large. And you're like, if I make my face skinnier, I'll feel a little better.
There's a weird website I went to where they took iconic pictures of Santa Claus. So the Santa Claus Coca-Cola campaign, stuff like that. And then they removed the beards from all of those Santas. And it just looked like a bunch of John Goodmans in red suits.
We really dodged a bullet there, folks. Whenever JJ starts a sentence with this weird website that I go to.
Yeah, that's a dangerous thing to say.
Yeah. And notice it's not like I said I went there once or I saw a single time this website. No, I've frequented it. Yep. I'd like to bring it out at parties.
I'm sure JJ wakes up in the morning and first it's Facebook.com and then Yahoo News and then
not
probably
anymore.
Some beardless Santas.
No, so I use a prep service at work called Wise Brother. And so I go to Wise Brother first because they tend to grab weird stories and odd things and they work overnight so that by the time like a morning radio show gets together in the AM, in the early hours of the day, they've got something to go off of to write a joke or
so some of your research has been done for you already.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
That's the secret of radio no one likes to talk about is prep sheets are amazing. But what do those people like? It's 10 o'clock at night. Guess I better get to work. Got to, cut up this episode of The Tonight Show so that the people can have audio for tomorrow. Dean, you're an early riser, eh?
Yep. 5 a.m. every morning.
There's a giant goose outside of our studio that just landed on an outbuilding. And I think he wants to be in this podcast. We really need to get that studio up and running.
We need to get that studio up and running.
When I drove here, there were a bunch of geese in a field. And I was thinking to myself, we live in an interesting area where a moose will occasionally wander into town. There's deer. You see raccoons on a constant basis.
In my neighborhood, there's wild turkeys walking around all the time.
You ever get into a fight with those wild turkeys?
No, but the deer do eat my trees occasionally.
See, that's not fun. So you're in a more rural area?
No, I'm in Fargo, but I'm near the river, so all the animals that sneak up the river will sneak into the yards to steal, gardens and flowers and plants.
Yeah, did you ever use urine to scare them away?
All I've ever done to scare them away.
That's always your solution, JJ, to every problem.
Listen, you didn't get your taxes done in time? Urine.
No, a fence, and I've got dogs, so the dogs chase them away. That does a good job. So.
Well, that's pretty good. I have heard that people you can buy fox urine at places like Fleet Farm, and you're supposed to spread that around your perimeter because then smaller animals will smell a predator and they won't get near it. I've also heard that people take human hair from butcher shops and sprinkle it around.
I saw that in the movie The Rookie. They did that.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the guys that do the research for the morning shows or whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that their day job, collecting urine from random animals?
So that's the thing. Is it synthetic urine or are they just how do you collect that much urine?
I bet it's like I saw urine collection at a dog racing track in Florida.
What?
It was a no-kill, all adoption racetrack, so I don't want people to think that I am endorsing animal cruelty, which I am not. But there were like 4 or 5 people whose jobs they were basically standing at the end. Like once the track was done, the dogs would run back to this sandy area, and they'd all be holding sticks with little plastic cups on them. And when one of the dogs would start to pee, they'd put it underneath because they were drug testing the dogs.
I never saw that in Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, that has not happened on Dirty Jobs. But surprise, surprise, I'm going to make JJ for this podcast go and do this job in Florida.
Sure. I would gladly do that because do you guys remember the movie Caddyshack?
Who doesn't remember that movie?
I know some people who've never seen Caddyshack, believe it or not.
I just saw the last 10 minutes of it about a week ago.
Did you?
By accident, I was flipping channels, and there it was. And I saw him blow up the golf course right at the end.
Hey, everybody, we're all going to get laid. Great last line for Rodney Dangerfield. Well, my favorite line in that is when Danny is caddying for the judge, and he's talking about like, well, I was hoping to go to college, but my grades weren't that good. And the judge is having a bad round of golf, and he goes, well, the world needs ditch diggers too. And it's always stuck with me because there's always somebody who has a job that I just don't want to do.
See, what I think the world really needs are more record fairs, more vinyl record fairs.
And you say that I'm the one who has the great way to tie things in. Look at that. That was expert work there, Tucker.
Well, I'm really excited that Dean is here because I met Dean, was it 2 years ago now?
3 years
3
already.
years ago
3
now?
years already, yes.
Greg Carlson, who we've had on the podcast before, and I made a short documentary about Dean. And so maybe you guys could get into that.
Okay. So that's where you want this one to go?
I guess we're going to talk about records.
Not the documentary, but...
So, and that is, I think, the bulk of our conversation today. So let's talk some vinyl here, Dean.
Certainly.
First and foremost, how'd you get into record collecting and keeping?
The record collecting was just, when I was young, music was the thing I was into. And I kind of come from a family of collectors. Kind of everyone in my family collected something. So it's in my blood. My dad collected toy tractors. My mom collects figurines. And everyone in my family kind of collects something. So the collector gene was there, and music was the thing I went into. And growing up in the 80s, vinyl was kind of the main format that was there. I never got into cassettes or 8-tracks or some of the other things that were out there. So vinyl was the thing. And there's just so much to listen to. I'm always interested in what else there is. So
what did you think when vinyl started to disappear? When people weren't really pressing anymore?
Well, again, for me, it was mostly music. So I shifted to doing a lot of CDs. I never gave up on vinyl completely, but you had to shift to CDs a little bit because, if you're looking at 10 different artists, maybe only one or two of them were still putting records out and the rest were just doing all CDs. So I still bought both. I've got a lot of CDs, a lot of records, but there's something about having a record and holding the vinyl that it's a little more intimate. It's a little more real. I don't know. For some reason, there's a love for vinyl that's not there for other types of formats.
What do you think it is about a vinyl record that people love so much? Is there really a difference in quality?
There can be, and that's a big sea to get into to kind of fish around with. I do believe that vinyl records can sound better, but they can sound worse because there's a lot of care involved in it. There's also a lot of steps in setting up your stereo in your system. Granted, the better system you have, the better it's going to sound. And it's setting up the stylus and the right angles, and there's a lot of geometry that goes into making sure you're getting the information off the record cleanly.
There's math involved?
There can be math involved, yes.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, count me out.
How do you download one?
Well, since you mentioned that, there is a company that's been trying to develop a home record recorder where you'd actually be able to download a music track, have this device at home that would basically carve the music into a record. I'm not sure what you're gaining by doing that other than spending a lot of money. But the idea, I think, is just the more they can get people to buy records, the better. So
sure. I watch on YouTube the pressing. So when they actually press the vinyl and it's this big glob first, and I find those to be so oddly soothing. And then the knife that goes around and cuts the edge. Yeah. Oh, I think it's such cool stuff. And we've been doing that for so many years now that it's a technology that, correct me if I'm wrong, we've pretty much hit the best of the best on.
I would say, yeah, especially on the record pressing, there's not much you can go there with. Again, if you watch YouTube or watch the internet, there are guys out there trying to make ultra quality vinyl, which is supposed to improve it. But all the explanation I've heard on that is like, basically the idea of digital and lasers is supposed to make it better. And I'm like, wasn't that what CDs did, was make it better? But, so some of those guys are out there trying to cash in on the vinyl craze, and they're going the wrong direction, I think.
Is it like lasers are cutting the groove?
I think lasers are cutting the grooves, and they're being able to make them smaller. And The technology, I think the idea is there. I don't think they have the technology there yet.
So there still is some room for growth. Let's get the NASA scientists on this.
They might need to be.
Yeah.
There is a company in Japan that also makes a laser turntable that uses a laser to read the grooves.
Yeah.
That's like, $15,000. So if you've got an extra few dollars laying around, go get one.
That's one thing I've always noticed about record collectors is you're not afraid to spend money on the stuff that you love. Whether you're picking a record up and spending $50 for that bad boy, or you're upgrading your system. For a while, you could go to some big box stores and you could pick up a record player that, for more or less, to me, was nostalgic purposes. And people would be like, check out my new record player, and I've got a Glenn Allerton album. Well, you're gonna love it. And I think, this sounds like crap. It's a crap speaker. It's a crap little system. The needle already looks like it's been through heck and back. Yeah. And so what kind of a system are you playing your vinyl on?
Well, I've got an independent component. So I've got a separate amp, preamp, turntable, separate phono stage. Everything's divided out so each one can be engineered to be the best possible. I also got a little crazy a few years ago and wanted everything to be American made. So everything's made in the USA, which cost a few extra dollars, but it was an idea I had and decided to follow through with it. And it's my one hobby, so I'm willing to spend money on that.
Well, why not? I spend money on hamburgers, and I only keep them with me for 30 minutes sometimes.
Well, I spend money on hamburgers too, but that's a necessity.
If you had to pick the jewel of your collection?
A jewel's hard to really pick. I mean, there's one that I always mention, and I feel bad every time I mention it.
Is it Lone Star? Big Star?
Big Star.
Big Star.
That's the one I always mention. So I've got an original pressing of the first Big Star record, which is for a band for me is just, I really like them. They did a lot of, great music. Their story's somewhat tragic because they tried to be the next big band, and their label went broke, and all this stuff fell apart for them. So it's an interesting story. The music's great. So that's always one I always bring up. Other than that, I don't really collect a lot of... there's things I'm really glad I have, but they're not super rare where it's be hard to get it again. But it's not super popular where it's worth money or a lot of people know what it is. I'm a super big fan of the Modern Lovers, so I wish I had their first pressing. But again, that's like $80 to buy that record. And I'm kind of cheap when it comes to some of that stuff.
So where are you looking for your records?
I'm kind of a vinyl tourist. Whenever I go anywhere, the first thing I do is look for which record stores are in town. We were just in Houston, Texas, not Houston, San Antonio. And in San Antonio, there's a few record stores. We stopped there. The suburbs had some. And then my brain went, hey, Austin, Texas has lots of cool record stores, and it's only an hour north. Let's go there. So we drove to Austin for a day and looked at record stores and bought records.
Austin is maybe one of the coolest cities in the United States.
Yeah, it is. It's a little super cool, maybe too much, but it's a great city. It's a fun place. Lots of stuff to do there. If you love music, there's tons of music there. Day and night, there's always something going on.
Okay, so when did vinyl make its big resurgence? Because I didn't have any friends who had actual records anymore, and then all of a sudden now it seems like 4 out of 7 of my friends all have record players, and they're picking up the latest Daft Punk album on vinyl.
Well, I've told people that this is kind of the third wave of vinyl in my mind. When I grew up, vinyl started being pressed, like what we think of vinyl discs now, in the 50s roughly. And up until like the late 80s, that was the main format that people used. And then CDs came in the late 80s and kind of started obliterating vinyl. And then roughly, I would say mid 90s, there was a little peak, a little comeback for vinyl that came up and then kind of started going down again. And then 11 years ago is when it really started taking off. And that's the peak we're still kind of riding right now.
So since we're in a peak, in a resurgence, in a renaissance, another R word that I can't think of off the top of my head, do you think it's getting harder to find some of the older stuff because there's so many more people in that market looking for it right now? Or has it opened up the world of people aren't just, I'm cleaning out my parents' place, so I'm taking all of these to, Goodwill, or they're throwing them out, God forbid.
I don't think there's a lot of throwing out anymore. I think most people have figured out that there is a vinyl resurgence. I think the big thing that's happening is there's a lot of people looking for stuff, so it's harder to find bargains. I mean, a lot of people my age were used to buying records for $1 or $2 and getting great records for $1 or $2. That doesn't happen anymore. Most people know you go to a garage sale now and they think every record's worth $20, where most records are still worth $1 or $2 unless they're in super good shape and all that. But you're right in the fact that there are people that have bunches of records from when they were young, don't use them, they're sitting in the basement, and they are bringing them out. So there is always new collections coming out into the group. I follow a lot of record stores online, and there's always videos saying, hey, we got this new collection, and it'll be tons of great records, but the stores know what to charge for them too.
We probably are in, along with the vinyl resurgence, in a milk crate resurgence as well. A lot of people, pulling out the old milk crates because they were the best way to keep your record collection if you're moving it around from one place to the other. So you got to imagine that like JW Milk Crate was really excited when he heard that people were collecting records again. They're like, yes!
Oh, those milk crates from Slovenia.
I know. They've had some tough times.
They have.
People are not crating milk as much as they used to.
A lot of persecution.
Yeah. In some parts of the country, there's a milk company called Dean, like, cast clay around here, but it's Dean. Every time I see those milk crates, I'm like, oh, I'd really like a couple of those.
There's I think it's Dean's like onion or sour cream chip
something
dip.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, in Illinois, I used Dean brand dairy products. Hey, listen, listeners. This is an ask out there. If you've got a Dean's milk crate and you don't mind sending it our way, we'll get you that. That's our goal.
That would be awesome.
So our listeners can't see this, but I wanted to bring it up for your reference, JJ, just to see Dean's speakers in his listening room.
Yeah.
If you watch the documentary, which you can
fully plug it. Where can they find the documentary?
Well, actually, my website's down right now, but we'll make sure to put it on the JJ Meets World Facebook page so you can watch it there.
Why is your website down? Did you not pay your hosting fees?
No, I just have not been focusing on it the past week. But Dean has these crazy speakers that when you look at them, they're 6 feet tall?
The ones I have right now are about 5 feet tall. The ones I want are 6 feet tall.
Okay. but when you look at it from the front, you think, oh, those must be really heavy. But when you walk to the side of them, they're only about this thick. They're about an inch thick.
Tucker's making
2 inches thick.
An inch between his thumb and his forefinger.
2 inches.
Yeah, they're just a couple inches thick. They're actually made in Minnesota, White Bear Lake, Minnesota. They're a brand called a brand called Magnapan, which has been around for I think 30 or 40 years. But I liked how they sound, so I decided to buy a set. So
Is there something about them being skinny that helps the sound?
Well, it's not necessarily being the skinny, but they are a dipole, so as much sound comes out of the front as comes out of the back. So you get a big, wide sound stage that fills the room very well, which I enjoy that. And there are other companies that make a dipole speaker, but I like how the Magnapan company does it.
So
plug, I'd like a discount on the next pair.
We'll work on an endorsement. You just tell us all the stuff you want, Dean, and we'll mention it during this podcast. List. Maybe you never know. You never know.
Need to go back to the milk crates.
Brought to you by Dean's Wish List.
You can see it online. Back to the milk crates for a quick second, though. You can go to Target and buy like a cheap milk crate. Mm-hmm. They are not 12 inches wide. They're like 11 and a half, so records do not fit in them.
Why would they even do that?
I don't know. They're sizing them for like normal size folders, like the 8x11 folders.
That's stupid.
I bet JW Milk Crate was engaged to marry Sue Vinyl, and then she ran off with someone else, and so...
Never again will my milk crates house the house of vinyl. Instead, I shall concentrate on old papers.
Old Jebediah Woden Milk Crate housed up in that house for the rest of his life.
I always envision that every product goes back to somebody who only uses initials and their last name is that product. Like, it might be like MA Microwave, like Miles Microwave was
HM Shake and Bake.
Yeah.
I just made this great product and I need a name. It's Red Cup.
Oh my God, Daryl Red Cup. It's the Daryl Red Cup. Or maybe somebody was a big Star Wars fan and they were like, I'm going to name this after my favorite character. No, that would be a bad joke. I got to stick away from all of the nerdy stuff sometimes because we're dealing with a different type of collecting here. We don't need to get into the Star Wars side of it. I own 32 Sesame Street records, Dean. And it was at a time when they were like, let's get as much as we can out of this. So one of them is about Bert doing the pigeon, which was a dance he did. And I had a couple of those as a kid, but that became a go-to gift for me. People would find vinyl from the Sesame Street issues. The jewel of my collection is the Sesame Street disco album that they did.
Do you spin it regularly still?
I do. And my girlfriend hates it because they're all like all good disco songs. Each track is about 6 minutes long.
No. And
the one that really drives her nuts is Cookie Monster's song, Me Lost Me Cookie at the Disco. It's quality stuff. And
don't say a name of a Cookie Monster song while I'm drinking water.
Yeah, you know what? And it starts off with like, this it's got this disco beat, and Ernie goes, Cookie Monster, why aren't you dancing? And he goes, oh, Bert, me cannot get down to disco beat. And he goes, what happened? Oh, sit down, me tell you whole story. And so it was about how he went to the discotheque and he had a cookie in his hand, but the beat was so inside of him and he was dancing that, as he says, me lost me cookie at the disco. Discotheque. So
I'm going to be surfing for that now.
Oh, you can find I'll bring it over. I'd love to hear it through your speakers sometime. Because I am one of those people who went out and bought the big box store. It looks like the old school little suitcase.
Yeah, the little suitcase ones.
Yeah. So that you could take it along wherever you needed to go.
They can be a lot of fun. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from that. I mean, you can enjoy any type of stereo you have. I just went a little crazy on mine, but
that's a nice thing to say. You're not like that guy who is like, if you don't have the best lawnmower on the block, you're not really cutting your grass, are you? You're just mangling it.
There is something to be said, though, for, like, I was not a vinyl collector at all until meeting Dean and listening to him talk about his passion for it and then listening to music on his system. And that was where I became a convert. Because before I just thought, vinyl, that's what I used to listen to Bill Cosby on when I was a kid. But that was
Eddie Murphy was me. I had an Eddie Murphy record.
Yeah, okay. Raw?
Was it Raw? I don't think it was Raw. It had like a blue cover. He was like in a leather suit. Was that right? No. He probably had a leather suit.
I think he
on
wore
all
a leather suit all the time.
Yeah.
That was Eddie Murphy's jam. Leather suits.
Yeah. Dude, what was your first record? Do you remember?
My very first record was the Bay City Rollers.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah.
So was it the full album, or was it just like a
full
45?
album. I can't remember the name of it. The Bay City Rollers. It wasn't the one with Saturday Night on it, though. It was the one with a different song, and they were all in their plaid outfits. Do you remember the Bay City Rollers?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. So you must be about my age, because I'm sure Tucker has no idea about the Bay City Rollers, because he's just a young pup there.
Well, I fully believe that I was born about 3 decades too late. Okay. I think I would have fit in.
So maybe you are younger than me?
I think a little bit.
1 year older than I am, I believe.
Yeah.
So you're both kids then.
Yeah.
He's just schooled in the ancient art of the Bay City Rollers.
JJ is what I was doing? Different.
Yeah. At a party last night where all of my peers were having a good time and showing apps on their phone, I was playing cribbage. So I just feel like
your friends get together and show each other their apps.
Well, they were
That's what they do.
They were comparing different apps. Like, oh, this is what I use for this. Oh, well, I use this app. I've got this app. And don't act like that's weird, because that happened to us right before we recorded an episode, and you and I can't remember who it was. We're talking about which podcast app they use to listen to podcasts.
But there was context. I just thought you were like, hey, Christy, look at the apps on my phone.
Check out
that's cool. Look at the apps on my phone.
I've got 73 apps. How many apps do you have?
Is there an app called Ass? Your Ass app? If not, there should be.
I turn around to go, did you just ask that? I have no idea.
This is
Well, what would that app do?
I don't know. That's the thing. Is I have no idea what the ass app would do. That's actually the app that we should launch for JJ Meets World. And
JJ Meets Ass?
Brought to you by AT&T.
Okay. Let's get back on subject here. Let's talk about some more history of records. In prepping for this interview, one of the things I did a little bit of research on was what did the having records do for the advancement of anything else. And it's amazing. I didn't realize how many spoken word records were put out, especially at the time when records were, just starting to be. People recording whole, sections of plays, people recording famous speeches.
Well, speeches are a big one because, before the development of records, it really, recording a mechanical interaction with a disc was way before magnetic tape or any other form of recording. So if you wanted to know what the president said, you had to wait for the newspaper. To hear the president, you had to go see him. So once you could record that, then radio stations could get copied to play all over. So it was a pretty important historical moment when all of a sudden you could share all the important political, artistic developments of the age and share them everywhere.
Do you have one of those? Is it an Edison tube?
Edison tube. I've got one. I actually was going to bring it, and I didn't bring it with. I used to have what I called a format library, where I'd try to keep like one type of every disc.
Really?
And I actually had a mini disc. I actually just got a mini disc player. So I've got one mini disc I can play at home. I've got the player to play it in.
Where did you pick up the mini disc player?
Well, the player my sister happened to have.
She had Circuit City that went out of business 20 years ago?
No, my sister bought one for some reason, when she was in her younger, in the 20s or whatever, when they were popular. She bought one just to be able to, like a Walkman, but you should record on it. And she still had it laying around one day. And, well, if you don't want it, I'll take it. So she gave it to me. And then Matt from Orange Record actually had a pre-recorded Rolling Stone magazine sampler of hits of the day. So it's got Soul Asylum and Tori Amos on it. So I was listening to that the other day. It's kind of funny to experience that.
What's on your Edison tube? Have you ever?
I've never been able to play it. No, there is a guy that does. Is it lamp repair? Kind of on 8th Street there that has a player in there, but mine's pretty cracked up. I don't know if you could actually play it.
Lamp repair?
Yeah, he makes lamps and lighting on 8th Street.
Oh. Right over by Nicole's, right?
Yeah, right by Nicole's.
Okay.
But he has a player in there. He was playing some discs in there one day, but mine, I think, has got too many cracks in it to actually put it on there.
He's a lampist,
I suppose. Or a luminist.
Dean really schooled you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing that I found to be the Wikipedia hole that I fell in was when the music industry really embraced records and found that there was a market for people to buy them. Immediately, the jukebox became the go-to thing you needed in your restaurant or bar, and it became a huge moneymaker. It was an enormous expense for people, but it was a huge moneymaker, and it was the first time ever someone had developed something that allowed it to change. So you could change out the songs that were inside of it.
And make it current as the new hits emerged from the radio.
And I found out that radio hated jukeboxes. They thought that was going to be one of the things that really puts down people playing music and kids listening to music was, well, if they're able to do it on their fingertips, they don't actually have to purchase this album. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
JW Radio is panicking over there with his good friends Walter WNBC. So and we had an old jukebox that my grandfather had, and then we put it in our garage at the lake, and it was kind of our party playlist. And that's where I fell in love with Tom Petty. Is we had like 4 or 5 Tom Petty albums in there. But do you have a jukebox?
I don't. I've always wanted one. I've never bought one. I've had a few opportunities to buy one, and always just kind of said, I don't want to spend the money right now. Part of it is the concern for, and the further away we get from jukeboxes is the repair of them, you know? And then I'm also pretty picky about my records, so I don't really want to stick my records in there. So then I'd be buying specific records for the jukebox. Because again, the mechanical because they're going to take a lot of wear going through the jukebox.
Right.
So I won't want to put anything good in there necessarily. Nothing collectible or valuable in there. But jukeboxes are great. I think the party and the social atmosphere of it, it's fun. Even now when you go to the digital jukeboxes and bars and stuff, it's fun to hear what everybody else might be sticking in there. When you have a good jukebox, I know Duffy's and Ralph's used to have great jukeboxes where you'd...
Do you know the Duffy's Jukebox tours as a musical act now?
I did. I saw that. That's hilarious.
It is... it's great because they'll put it up on the stage. I saw it at the Sanctuary Event Center not too long ago, and they just put it up on the stage and they tie it into the sound system and they have the jukebox spin records. I was like, this is amazing. This is the ultimate reduce, reuse, recycle of something. And I don't personally get the same thrill from the modern day touch tunes that I did from, knowing, well, you've only got 40 choices.
No.
And you have to plan accordingly. Now it's endless.
Yeah.
And now you can do stuff where if you pay an extra $1.50, this will play next, and the more that are in line, the higher that next play is. And so Phil Lund, who's a friend of mine, spends every Christmas night at Mick's office in Moorhead. He calls it Chris Mix, and he writes down this huge playlist to make the perfect playlist. But then he'll go in and drop $200-$300 into the jukebox to make sure it's play now, and someone will go up halfway through the night and they'll put $1 in the machine. It's already accepted the dollar. And they'll be like, your song will play
in
January
2 hours.
8th, 2025, and they'll just be utterly pissed. And then he'll even go and bribe the bartender to give him the remote. So if someone plays something, he'll be like, 9 Inch Nails, nope inch nails, and click and skip it. And then that person's doubly pissed. But
knowing Phil, he probably lets every song play 2/3 of the way through and then switches to the next one.
It's not even 2/3. It's like 30 seconds and click.
This is someone who I've never heard finish a song before switching to another song.
So interestingly enough, Phil Lund, it was my first friend who got heavy into vinyl, and it has almost cured him of this switching. He will listen. He'll put an album on and listen all the way to the end, and then I'll go over and switch it out. And I am amazed at what vinyl has done to cure his music switchophobia.
Well, that's good, because that's what the phones and the computers and all the digital downloads does, is makes everyone listen to one song. They don't listen to full albums anymore, or not as much as they should. And I like a full album that's put together by an artist to be a singular work of art rather than just a collection of singles.
Do you so how many correct me, okay, so a 45.
That's the 7-inch ones, or 45s. But again, a 12-inch record can also play at 45, depending on how it was pressed.
So a 7-inch would have what? Maybe
typically one song on each side is traditional, but
okay.
I mean, you could, depending on if you're a punk rock band that has 1-minute songs, you could get 4 or 5 per side if you wanted to.
So you've got pretty much a limit of 5 minutes of playtime,
on
roughly.
A 7-inch, yeah, about 5 minutes of playtime on each side.
I only have one 7-inch record, and it's Annette Funicello, and one side is Tall Paul, and the other side is Pineapple Princess.
Okay.
She liked words that rhymed for that. And Tall Paul is a ridiculous song because she's just talking about how much she likes this guy, and she refers to him as Tall Paul, which makes you think, how many Pauls did you know? Did you know a short Paul, or did everyone have something that rhymed with them, which would be horrible for you, Tucker.
Or it'd work out great.
So Annette Funicello, she was the one from the Beach Party movies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I used to love those as a kid.
I think a lot of people love those. In fact, why have we not seen a good resurgence in the Beach Party movies?
You can't perfect it.
Well, I beg to differ. There was
people tried Baywatch and it didn't work.
Oh no, I'm talking about the same campy style
It's
that
gotta
it
be
used
the
to be.
campy teenagers on the beach, and you gotta have the tough rat rod biker gang come and disrupt the party. And
In the early 2000s, there was a movie called Psycho Beach Party, which had Amy Adams in it and the girl who was in 6 Feet Under, and it was written and directed by a guy who's known for a particular drag performance, Charles something or other. But it is the closest I've seen outside of the 1950s and early 60s to recreating the beach party movie. And it's set in the 50s. It's about a girl who, whenever she sees something that has swirls in it, like all of a sudden her brain kicks over and she becomes a different person. She's sort of the sex cat.
Okay.
And then she goes back to like, gosh, guys, I can't believe that happened. Amber Tamblyn. No. Is that her name? I don't know. Anyway, it's very good. If you like those old movies,
I'll have to
this
go
is a
search
fun,
that out.
Yeah, because it's a little tongue in cheek with the way that they're handling things. Anyway, I digress. But if I'm going to throw one more thing out, I think another thing is in the movie That Thing You Do. At one point, the band, the Wonders, they guest star in one of those beach
they
movies.
do. That's very funny.
As Captain Geach in the Shrimp Shack Shooters.
Yeah. I almost just bought that on VHS. I was at an estate sale last week, and they had that on VHS. I'm like, I should buy this.
Okay.
My wife and I both love that movie.
So let's go back. So you also have VHS? Are you?
Well, I own some I have a VCR. I didn't buy it because I don't really collect VHS tapes, but because it was That Thing You Do, it just seemed like something that'd be cool to have.
I do not have a VCR in my house. I love movies, but I just don't have a VCR anymore. So I'm amazed. Are you the type of person who never really throws away a piece of media technology? You always find
I have
a way
a
to
hard
repurpose?
time getting rid of it. Yeah, I've got a small hoarder tendency, maybe.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as it's not a big hoarder tendency. And if it is, let me know.
It's under control. It's at least that's what I say. We'll see what other people think.
Do you know how many albums you have in your collection?
It varies because especially since I started doing the record fair, I sell some every year, but I buy a lot every year. It's probably settled in somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 records right now.
Wow. Do you have to have a long conversation with each record when you pull it out and be like, sorry, I'm so sorry, Saturday Night Fever original cast recording of the musical. You're going to the record fair this year.
I don't have to have a long conversation with that, but the funniest story about picking records for the record fair is I'll have a pile of like sell, and I'll put a record in it, and then the next day I'll move it to the keep pile, and they go back and forth. So it is, because one day I might say, I don't really like that record. The next day it's like, oh, I used to really like that record. And I have a hard time letting go of some of that. So
Do you give them one last play before you sell
a
them?
lot of times I do, and it's about a 50-50 shot. Sometimes they go back on the shelf, and sometimes they go away. It depends. There's music that I've bought and I've loved and I've played it a lot, and it's my favorite record. I'm going to keep it forever. There's other records I've bought and listened to a couple times and didn't really get it, and then 5 or 6 years later I'll pull it off and play it again. It's like, oh, now I got it.
Dean, that's a dangerous dance. I don't go out to lunch with ex-girlfriends because sometimes I think that's exactly what's going to happen to me. Is I'll be like, God, things were really good at one point. Be like, nope, I've ripped the Band-Aid off. So let's. This is a perfect way to segue. See, Tucker tried to force it too early. Now this is the perfect time to segue into the Fargo Record Fair.
It's probably a good time to do it.
Early.
So
What is this podcast about today?
I don't know. We've covered quite a few subjects.
we did. We've been all over the place. We talked about urine. We talked about That Thing You Do.
You can't. JJ's like the Hulk. You can't control him. You can only aim him.
Yeah. I just said let's stop talking about nerdy stuff.
15 minutes ago.
Yeah, right. So let's talk record fair. What is it? Why is it? How is it?
What is it? What is it? How is it?
Why? Why is it?
Well, what it is pretty easy.
Fucking Ted Koppel over here. Sorry, go ahead.
What it is basically just, I rent a room. I find a bunch of guys that have collections that they might want to sell, and we all stand around a room and people come shop. I mean, it's basically like a big garage sale. It's all vinyl records. For me, the why it is I worked in a music store for 10 years. And one of the best things about working in a music store, besides just being able to interact with music and listen all day long, was the people. I mean, talking to other people that are big music fans and interconnecting with them and hearing what they're liking and what I like, and you just have that conversation. I go to work every day, and it's mostly hunting and fishing because I'm an electrician, so I work with other guys that are, they're fishermen, they're outdoorsmen. And I don't have a lot of music guys I hang out with. So part of it was I want to be able to hang out with music guys. And I visited a friend in New York City, or he lives in Connecticut. We went to New York City for the WFMU Record Fair, and this was about 11 years ago. So after that, I'm like, I should do something like this in Fargo. So when I got back, that's when I started organizing it and trying to put it together. So that's how it started. How, what, why?
Yeah.
Did I cover all that yet?
Yeah.
When?
Well, this year, when is October 20th. And it's going to be at the El Zagel Shrine.
Oh, that's a great
in
place
North
to have
Fargo,
it.
yeah. So we're going to be on both levels. They'll be open, so the bar will be there so people can get drinks if they want to have a drink or whatever. They'll have soda available. We're going to try to get some food there, a food truck or something this year. So,
is it okay? So let's talk about handling a little bit, because I wouldn't want people drinking beer while walking around and looking at my wares. What about the condensation from the cup and wet fingers? And what about somebody who spills?
There's always that concern, I suppose, with anything. I mean, we've had beer available at the last 3 record fairs, and we've never had an issue with it. The food vendor, I've always been more concerned about the greasy fingers than anything else. But most of the collectors that are there, they're shopping, they know that they need to take care with the records. They're not just going to sloppily just flip through everything. And the people that are selling, I mean, most of their valuable stuff is going to be in a plastic bag anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm not too worried with that. But it's nice to have people, the beer and the food gives people a reason to hang out longer, which gives them a chance to find more things they might want to take home.
So if you've got a bunch of people who are there, I assume, old lady Mabel from down the block isn't signing up to sell a bunch of records she has in the basement at the Fargo Record Fair.
Not typically. I mean, we've had a few people that are, senior citizens type people that have signed up to sell records.
Just want to get rid of it?
Just want to get rid of it. We had a couple come from Bismarck a couple years ago, and they had sheet music and some basically music that's aged out. I mean, that's a good way to put it. And it's just, artists that were very popular, say in the 40s.
Perry Como type stuff.
But, the younger generation hasn't picked those artists up to say, oh, this is cool. They've picked up Frank Sinatra, but they haven't picked up Perry Como. So some of those artists just don't go, and that's what they were trying to sell. So they only made it about half the day. And kind of we're not doing so good, But, there are guys out there that are, 60, 70 years old that come and they're still shopping for records. They're still looking around, or they'll corner me and say, well, what do I do if I want to get rid of my records? And I've gone to lots of people's houses and kind of said, well, this is what you should do with this. I don't really buy collections from them, but I like to be an advocate for them to kind of temper their expectations, because they'll hear the vinyl resurgence and think, oh, I've got 1,000 records in my basement. It's worth $10,000. And it's no, slow your roll a little bit. It's not worth that much. So
you want to hear a tragic story about my day job is at a radio station. And of course, everything now is computer based. So nobody's actually spinning a record anymore. But the company I work, or the station I work for, has been around for 70 plus years. And so I said, I want to know where you guys house all of the records you've got over the years, because it was pretty common for radio or for music labels to send radio stations just tons and tons and tons of stuff that was airplay. Let us know we're trying to launch this band. We know you're playing a lot of the Beatles. Well, we also have this group that we think would go along well with the Beatles. And I wanted to see where the storage room was. I said, where's all this thing? No, because this company said, well, we don't use this anymore. They used to have a huge basement. Yeah. And they're like, well, we're just going to get rid of it. And so they had a letter from a guy who said, if you're ever getting rid of some of your stuff. And so they wrote this guy, he's from, I want to say Nebraska. And they said, well, you can come and take this and it'll, we'll charge you per record. He goes, I will give you $10,000 cash and just take everything you have. And they go, oh, yeah, okay, chump. Well, this guy, it took 2 big U-Hauls to take all of that out. Can you imagine the type of stuff that he got out of there?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy what's down there, because like I mentioned my Big Star record earlier, that's actually a record radio station copy, which is fun to see, you know. And the thing is like if you get a Beatles record from a radio station or a Led Zeppelin record from a radio station, it's probably shot. It's probably worth nothing because it's been played so much. But a band like Big Star that never really had a commercially viable single, that record probably never got played.
Yeah.
So if you're getting obscure stuff from a radio station, it's probably all in really good shape. So I kind of like to see that when I'm looking for oddball stuff.
And he took not only the records, but all of the stuff that was like on cart tapes and stuff like that, reel to reel. He got everything.
Yeah. Reel to reel's coming back too. People,
is it really?
Yeah, people are getting into having the old players and spinning them. I don't know. That's another expense.
Is that more just for the fun of using that machine, or is
Part
there
of it's-
any actual audio benefit to that?
There is some audio benefit to it. A lot of it's playing with the machine, but you can control the speed that it spins at. So you can, it's kind of like the old VCRs, how you can, you know, SP versus EP. You can record it at a different speed, which lets you increase the content on the tape, which increases the quality. And some people say that, you know, for home listening, if you can get a really good reel to reel, that's the best it's going to be.
I think reel to reel.
I don't know about that, but some people believe that.
A sexy look to it as well. When you
It
get
does have a
those
very
two things, and like, you know, the way it spins, it's a giant cassette tape. When you look at it, I think it looks cool.
Really cool, you know. So
I also think that there's a little magic to when you finish listening to an album and the speakers are still making that slight whirring noise because you have, you know, the disc is still spinning, but there's no needle on it anymore. Or with the old ones where the needle would get to the edge and it just wouldn't play anything anymore, but just I find that to be a very comforting noise. I don't know why.
I like not to have that noise.
Oh,
that's my goal. Is like, no, I don't go, but it's like, you know, when I get a record that's perfectly quiet, that's like heaven. That's like, okay, this is great.
Yeah.
Because you'll put it down and you don't hear that. Because a lot of records you'll put down and you hear that, just that little background noise. But you get a record that's totally clean and nicely pressed. That's the best experience there.
Do you have any albums that are made out of material other than straight up vinyl? Do you have one of those weird wood ones?
I don't have a weird wood one. There's someone that pressed one in ice where you had to play it really fast. No.
What?
That was just an art experiment, but they do a lot of weird stuff like that. I don't have any. Well, I've got like a flexi disc they used to sell with magazines, so I've got one of those, a couple of those maybe. I've got one that's cardboard. You know, it came on the back of a cereal box. You cut it out of the cereal box and you can play it. I've never played it because I'm not putting that on my turntable. Other than that, I mean, I don't do a lot of the oddball like pressings like that. I'm not a big fan of the colored vinyl. I'm not a big fan of the picture discs. I've got a few, but it's not like I collect. Some people collect, I want all colored discs or I want all picture discs. But I like just the good old solid, you know, black vinyl. That's my favorite. So
you also end up like collecting stuff just for its kitsch value, or
sometimes I get some kitsch value stuff. I know we had the one in the documentary with the big pop-up in it. And there's a few bands that have been pop-up records over the years. Roberta Flack did one that was like a piano opening where half the cover would open like the lid of a piano.
Doesn't surprise me with Roberta Flack.
No. That's the thing, I think, too, that kind of part of it was listening to your sound system, listening to you talk about vinyl collecting and the process of putting it on and the intentional process of listening to it.
Oh, yeah.
But also just as a piece of art. I mean, the size of an album sleeve is just so much better for appreciating art on it.
And they do more with them. You know, there's a band called Wooden Ships. And they have like a white sleeve with all these punch outs in it. And then the cover behind it's like a very psychedelic painting. And depending where you move it, it's a different picture. I've got a 7-inch from Guided by Voices that it's like almost looks like a viewfinder disc. And you turn it and different things pop up in the little viewfinders. So some of that stuff's neat. I don't specifically collect it, but I kind of end up with it. And when you have it, it's cool to have.
So you must be easy to get for Christmas and birthday.
Usually,
it's like, we'll just get Dean a record.
Well, then do you have like a list of needs or wants for people to use? Because you have so many records.
Do, but here's a funny story about this. And my wife is going to really laugh. So last year for Christmas, I made a list. but I'm impatient. So I made this list. And then kind of just talking through my family, I didn't sound like anyone was really buying me records. So I bought half the list. And then for Christmas, I opened it up and Lori bought me the ones I'd already bought. So she was like, darn it. So then she returned them when I got different records, which was fine. Well, this year for, what was it for? Some reason she bought me a gift. She bought me this book. It was a First Avenue book for Minneapolis that had like pictures from the bands that played over the years.
Sweet.
Well, my sister-in-law gave me that for Christmas, but my wife forgot about it. So we've been striking out on gifts this year a little bit.
Well, at least somebody has an idea of what to go with. Because occasionally I'll be like, I can't buy any more Fiesta-ware cookware. It's done. We're
There's
done
always
with
more
this.
colors. She doesn't have the green one.
Oh, I respect you so much more that you know about Fiesta-ware, Dean.
We've got a lot of Fiesta-ware
Do
in our
ya?
house. My wife's got, our dishes are all Fiesta-ware, and then we've got some of the pitchers and the pots and the salt and pepper shakers.
This is the first time I've ever heard that name.
Fiesta-ware is a really high quality. They make everything. They make cups and saucers. And,
silverware even.
and they're all super bright colors, single color. Most of them single color. You can find some stuff that's mixed, but what I like about it is I buy one set of a bunch of different colors, and so now I've got these vibrant, neat-looking plates, and brings a lot of color into
So
it.
again, another thing, we get up early in the morning.
Yeah,
We both like Fiesta-ware. What was the other thing
we
we were...
both
JJ's
just like
working on
Perry
his-
Como. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
You're definitely different in the facial hair department.
Yeah, I cannot grow facial hair. I can grow patches. Right now, I've got I've got a little mini scruff, but this is 2 weeks of not shaving, and this is the best I can muster. Whereas I feel like if you were to shave your beard off and someone,
I'd be like Tucker by the end of the week.
right? Yeah, you could just if you sneezed, you'd have 3 inches of hair on your face. So the Fargo Record Fair, how many people attend and how many people sell?
Well, the last few years we've been averaging about 500 people come through the doors to shop, to look around. And again, they're staggered. I mean, it's not like it's 500 at one time, but we get a good crowd showing up. I'm really impressed by how people support the Fargo Record Fair. I go to record fairs in Minneapolis, and I'm not there all day long, but when I'm there, it seems like there's a smaller group of people at any one time than we have in Fargo. And last year I think we had 35 different people selling.
Wow.
And we were spread out over like 50 tables. So
Do they pay anything to set up shop?
they do. I charge them a table fee,
Okay.
and then I also charge people an admission to get in.
How much is it to get in?
Typically it's $3.
Oh, that's a bargain
It's
there.
yeah, it's not a lot of money. And then I don't charge the vendors a lot. I mean, it's like $35 or something. And my whole goal with it is
Wow, that's nothing.
No.
So my whole goal with it is the vendor's expense covers the rental of the space. Mm-hmm. And I budget for the admissions pay for the advertising. So that's kind of my goal. Is I don't really look to make money off the record fair. I'm looking to just have something there because I find that the day is a lot of fun. And then any money I make off the records I sell, but I don't sell a ton of records anyway. So
Because you keep putting them back in the keep pile.
exactly. Or I'm reinvesting all the money I might make from selling records.
Sure, I imagine you probably walk out with a good handful of records from other tables that day.
I'm typically too busy to shop the other tables. To be
Oh, what
honest
a
with you,
bummer for
usually.
you.
Yeah.
Usually he's drawn with people coming up to his table because
Yeah.
you're kind of at the epicenter of the vinyl community in Fargo.
Well, I've been doing it a long time. I mean, I worked in a music store in town for 10 years. So a lot of people still remember me from that. And then doing the record fair and just shopping. I mean, I shop at all the stores in town, so all the people that work at the stores know me. I get introduced to people when I'm around town. You know, my wife works at the library, so she'll say, "Oh, this is the librarian." And at the same time, "Oh, this is Dean. He's the record guy." So it gets, I've been around town now since the early 90s. So, and I go to concerts a lot, and so I'm around, I guess, so people kind of get to know me.
Do you get bands to sign records, or once you have it,
I'm
do you
not
like,
an autograph guy.
Yeah.
I don't do autographs, so just never been my thing.
Do you own anyone's gold or like platinum records?
Nope, I've never gotten into that side of the collecting either. It's pretty much the physical product I like to buy. I don't really do much of the memorabilia stuff.
That's cool.
I'd like
respect.
I would like to get a memorabilia dealer to come sell at the record fair more. There's some of the guys that will have a few things, signed posters, signed this, but it'd be fun to have a guy that has a really nice collection of memorabilia that might want to sell it. I think it's fun for people to see it, if nothing else, even if they don't want to buy it. I've just never been an autograph guy for some reason,
Yeah. You got to own up. You've got a small VHS collection that's not really a collection, but you've got it. You've got a mini disc. I like the idea of all the different medias. I bet that's pretty cool. I bet that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Dean's got a pretty massive CD collection as well.
Yeah,
it's not just vinyl you've got.
Yeah, no, I've got CDs and vinyl, and they're probably pretty close to the same. I mean, half and half. Because like the 10 years I spent working in the record store, I started at the record store shortly after they kind of got out of vinyl. And then about halfway through me working there, that's when we started getting back into vinyl a little bit. And I was kind of a pusher on that, of saying we should really have a few vinyl pieces. So I would select, maybe 200 at a time to have in the store, just so if people came and said, hey, you got the new vinyl record by Pearl Jam, because Pearl Jam was releasing vinyl at that time, I could say, yes, we do, where I'd rather than send them away to somewhere else. So
we'll do what we can to press this episode onto a record for you so you can listen to it via that.
Yeah,
because
so
I know
while you listen along, we could do a comic book
That's
for it.
true.
Like Tucker's record he showed me when I got here.
That's true. I had to show Dean my latest record, which Theater of the Mind, the audience will just have to picture in their heads. But it's an amazing Spider-Man record.
Looks like a comic book.
It actually has a comic
Spider-Man
book
on the front
built into it.
Oh, nice.
And I love this thing. And it looks like it might be John Buscema.
Is the record is it a reading of the comic book that's inside, or is it Spider-Man?
It's his book and record set. It's fun to read as you see and hear exciting stories. So there's 2 stories in this: Invasion of the Dragon Men and The Mark of the Man Wolf. I haven't had a chance to play it because we're in between studios, so my vinyl stuff is all broken down. But that I like this thing a lot. I had no idea these existed, so now I have to go out and find out how many
thing to collect.
How many superhero vinyls are out there.
Now, is that Marvel?
Yep.
Spider-Man Marvel?
Spider-Man's Marvel. Although on the inside of this too, I'm seeing Superman, Sherlock Holmes, Conan the Barbarian, meaning Star Trek guys. So I think that they obviously have a series of other ones.
So I'm looking at this. Bang is the company that put this out. Is that what it says?
Power Records.
So I'll bet you Power Records just went and did it for all of these different properties.
Yeah.
And so
I don't know if they're by the same company, but I have a Batman one, I have a Rip Van Winkle one, and I have a $6 Million Man one as well.
Ooh,
but only this one has a comic book built into it.
Dean, thank you so much for being a guest on JJ Meets World. This was informative and interesting. And tell people where they can find more information about Fargo Record Fair.
Okay, well, the Fargo Record Fair, you can find information on Facebook. I do have a website at fargorecordfair.com, but I need to update it. I think it's .com. It might be one of those weird .orgs, .somethings.
Yeah, Google it.
I do have something else to plug, though.
Oh, please plug away.
I am doing a presentation at the Fargo Library called Vinyl Care 101, and I'm basically going to cover how to, a little bit about how to set up your turntable, a little bit of how to store your records, a lot about how to clean them and keep them in the best shape to protect them.
Which is very important because that's something that people don't, they take for granted. That
they do take for granted. And you've mentioned that you bought one of those little all-in-one units. And I have no problem with those. Like I said, I mean, you can enjoy any type of system you have, but I do get concerned when someone has a player like that and then they go out and buy like a $200 collectible record and they play it on it. And it's like, if you're buying a $200 collectible record, you should really be taking care of it in a good way and not playing on a player that's might not be doing the best for it. A player like that, have it, use it, enjoy it, buy records that are $3, $4, $5, play it on and have fun, but don't put an expensive record on it.
Are you a white glove kind of guy?
Only when I change the tubes in my stereo.
Okay.
But the date for the Fargo Public Library, it's called Vinyl Care 101, and it's on July 9th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. It'll probably go longer. And it's at the main library, which is 102 3rd Street North. The Fargo Record Fair, again, is October 20th at El Zagel, and that's 1429 North 3rd Street. So
And you can follow on Facebook.
Follow on Facebook.
So
That's
that
the
neat
easiest
stuff.
way to do it. And I do have the website, but I'm not very good at updating it. So
And if you're going on vacation anytime soon, become a vinyl tourist and check out the
Absolutely.
record stores.
There's
in other
record
towns.
stores everywhere, and they're a lot of fun to go to. I mean, we went to Portland. We went to the West Coast. I mean, I always like to find the record stores and dig around in them.
There must be some neat regional stuff too. So like when you go down to Texas, you can see stuff that maybe didn't make its way up to our neck of the woods. And
Well, Texas is a good example, and then actually Minneapolis is a good example. Both of those spaces, when I went to them, you go to the stores, and almost all of them have a Texas section, like when you're in Texas. Or if you go to Minneapolis, they'll have a Minnesota section. I haven't noticed that in North Dakota much. They might have a local section. But it seems like Texas and Minnesota both have really strong musical history, so it's fun to go to the Texas section and see what they are throwing in there.
what would be in the North Dakota section? Johnny Lang,
Bobby V, Lawrence Welk.
Oh, thank you.
But you can go to more obscure stuff. I mean, there's bands like Godhead Silo and Orange 17, and I'm trying to think of other bands locally that have released albums. Well, Egypt is somewhat local. I think they're still local. Those are little smaller, obscure groups.
There you go. Start a North Dakota section of your local record store. And thank you to all the people who are going to reach out and get a hold of a Dean's milk crate for you. We want something in good condition. We want it to be large enough to actually hold a record. So if you've got a small one, we're not interested. A for effort, B for follow.
Measure it.
Yeah.
Measure it.
In fact, send us pictures with a ruler so that we can see for certain. But Dean, thanks for being a guest.
It was great meeting you, JJ. Great seeing you again, Tucker. And I like coming to these things. So.
And Tucker, they can find the documentary on your website.
Yeah, well, we're going to paste it on the JJ Meets World Facebook page, so that's probably the best way to find it right now.
Sure,
It's
but if
called
they're
A
listening to
Perfect
this-
Record, and usually if you Google it, it'll come up. So
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Perfect Record on the Google.
Yep.
on the Google.
Dean Sime rhymes with slime and time. Both time as a clock and time as an herb.
Yes, I suppose. Not spelt like time the herb, though.
JJ Meets World.
That's gonna wrap it up like a Snickers bar for today's show. For more info, including how you can help us keep the lights on and the internet flowing, you can donate to our Patreon. Find it by cruising over to our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit us up on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites that the fancy kids are using these days, aka we are just as popular as your children. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World or just want to see what's going on, subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you're interested in following what JJ has going on, you should check out linebenders.com. Last, but certainly not least, folks, here's a reminder. Do not use an abrasive scrubbing pad when cleaning a cast iron skillet. You're just going to take all of that quality seasoning away. It's a bad idea. Secondly, if you have slippery hands, do not, I repeat, do not handle cast iron skillets while wearing open-toed shoes.